6 o'clock now, so we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Everybody's present except our mayor. He's excused at this time. So please stand. We're gonna, Councilman Lopez will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and Councilman Seal will give us the opening prayer.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, as we bow before thee this evening at the beginning of our council meeting, we wish to express gratitude for all of our many blessings. We're grateful for this free land in which we live and for those who work to preserve our freedoms. Those serving in the military, our first responders, and all those who work to keep us safe. Father, we're grateful for this valley that we live in and for all those who we count as neighbors. And we would ask you at this time to pour out thy blessings upon them. Bless them with health and strength. Bless them with the things they stand in need of. At this particular time, we ask you to bless those who have lost loved ones due to the coronavirus, that they might be comforted. Bless those who are sick. Bless those throughout our valley and throughout the country, that we might be able to get by this and move forward with our lives. But also ask for a blessing that we might be able to rid ourselves of the divisiveness that plagues our country at this time and come together and work for the common good. As we're assembled here tonight, we ask you to bless us with thy Spirit, that we'll be able to make those decisions that would be in the best interest of those whom we serve and would be in accordance with thy will. And we pray for this in the name of Jesus Christ.
Amen. And the next item of business will be any comments from the citizens on agenda items. There's none. I believe we have one comment from a citizen on a non-agenda agenda item. Lisha? Lishay? Please come forward. And would you please state your name and give us your address too, please?
My name's Lishay Bruckner. I'm at 113 South 8th Avenue in Safford. I'd like to talk about zoning ordinance titled 6, animals, municipal 606.04.050. I have 2 potbelly pigs. I recently became aware of the ordinance where swine or pig is no longer allowed in city limits. I'd like to try and address, and I want to kind of show how my potbelly pigs, yes, they are considered swine, but they are also deemed pets. They're not like your normal livestock hog or your wild animal, which most swine and pig is referred to. Because I do agree with the ordinance as far as having large livestock style animals and in residential homes is definitely not something we'd like to have. But I would like to state how, I apologize, I'm a little nervous, this is my first time, so I do apologize, but I just want to kind of state, like, first, kind of introduce my potbelly pigs, first of all. My first one is Arnold in the picture there. He's the black and white one with the little top hat and the little bow tie. We've had him since he was about 3 months old. He is leash trained. He loves to sit for treats. He likes to go out and meet people. There's a lot of misnomers on potbelly pigs as far as what kind of pig they are. So when I take them out, I love to educate people and kids about what exactly is a potbelly pig versus your big livestock style pig, or even there's a lot of misnomers about them being the size of a small dog or like a Chihuahua, and that's definitely not true either. So I like to educate people on potbelly pigs. One of the things that I've noticed with my research recently, most of the city ordinances, when it refers to pigs, is they use the term swine or pig, which is a very broadened term. Kind of like canine would be for your dogs, which is like your Chihuahua. It could be a Great Dane, but canine could also refer to a Midwestern gray wolf. So I just kind of want to show that my potbelly pigs are kind of the Chihuahua exception to the canine or the swine breed, if you would. In the research, our ordinance that refers to the swine pig was put into place as early as 1976. The potbelly pig, in most research, didn't come around to be a pet until about the 1980s, 1990s. So it's a fairly brand new pet through society. There are a lot of issues with little pigs not being able to stay in their homes due to a lot of people do, just like any animal, get the animal and then not quite sure how to take care of it. But then we're finding out a lot of them are because of ordinances like this. We get a pig, a lot of breeders, a lot of the education or as far the research as far as potbelly pigs go, all refers to it being a pet. And then we find out a lot of the times due to the ordinances or city guidelines, they're not considered pets. And so that's what I'm kind of wanting to show here today, that, you know, they are just a sweet little loving pet, kind of like a dog or a cat. You know, we don't want to have big swine or anything like that in our homes, but just a nice little potbelly pig. Most people don't realize that they only get to be about the size of a medium to mid-large dog, which is anywhere from 1 to 200 pounds, versus a livestock hog is anywhere from 600 to 1,000 pounds. That's quite a big difference when it comes to a little pig versus a big pig. With a lot of these misnomers, these little guys are actually ending up in a lot of shelters, and they're starting to pop up all over, not just Arizona, but the state, all across the nation. And there's a lot of counties out there that are helping to improve on this. I spoke to a gentleman, Tim Oldsman, in Yavapai County zoning, that have deemed them pets here in Arizona as well, showing that, you know, they're not the livestock that most people might think of as when it comes to swine, or also not the little tiny teacup pigs to where they're going to stay the size of a Chihuahua or a Terrier, because that's not true either. So just one of my my biggest things is I love to educate people, and I'd love to be able to keep my little pigs in the home. We've become quite a big part of the community. I've actually volunteered up at the Neighbor Farm and Pantry. I've taken my Arnold pig up there multiple times to teach the kids about the difference between pigs and versus other animals, and just to educate all the way around on pigs. And it's a very touching subject. I've taken them to one of the local churches just across the street from my house and taken to his youth night, and he loves going out. They love, you know, they do tricks. Sometimes he'll prop up and kind of beg for a treat. He'll sit just like a dog would. So they're very intelligent. They're very loving creatures, and they're very misrepresented when it just comes to the term pig. So I hope that with a lot of the education that I've given you and speaking here today, that I can hopefully convince you guys that, you know, they are just a little pet, and I'd love to be able to keep them in the home and keep educating people about the pets as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, just as a comment, would this be an item that the council might want to bring up at our work session?
Well, Vice Mayor, I don't know if she was told she only had 3 minutes and that we weren't allowed to respond.
Yeah.
But we are allowed to give staff some guidance. And so I never heard what was wanted, but if somebody would guide her to staff so that she could express to them what it is and what she needs to take her topic forward, I think that would be fair to her.
Then if you'd get together with our city manager, John, let's come up with a time and date.
Thank you.
Then we'll move on to item number 7. It's a presentation from Brian. He's the director of the Graham County Department of Health.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to report on our current COVID-19 test result numbers and our anticipated numbers for the future. Actually, I'd rather talk to you about potbelly pigs instead of this.
Named Arnold?
Name Arnold. That's
Yeah,
kind
okay.
Councilman Arnold, or?
Yes. As of today, this is a news release that I sent out maybe 30 minutes ago. So this will be mentioned on the Arizona Department of Health Services website tomorrow. As of total positives, we're right now, Graham County, we're at 556 positive cases. On active cases, we're at 344. Recovered cases, 195. And as of tonight, we have one additional death, and we're now at 17 on the deaths. We had a spike in cases beginning on June 22nd through August 2nd. And on June 22nd, we were actually at 65 COVID cases. And on August 2nd, we were at 490 cases with a 425 positive increase during this time. Just a quick weekly breakdown through July. On July 5th, we had 55 cases. July 12th, 91 cases. July 19th, 98 cases. July 26th, 94 cases. On the week of August 2nd, we dropped down to 59 cases, so it was a good drop. And then as of last night and tonight, we do begin counting on Sunday. We had 4 cases on Sunday night, and we had 7 cases tonight, so that's 11 cases so far this week. So we are leveling out, and we are actually decreasing in cases right now. So we've spiked, and now we're heading down, which is a good sign. In addition, we are organizing another testing blitz sometime in September, and the date and place is to be determined. We are working with a commercial lab to actually come into our community and test. And so at this time, our COVID-19 situation, it is looking better. Any questions?
Does anybody have any questions, or? Well, it's just nice to hear that we just might have peaked, and like you say, we are
Yeah.
coming down. Any suggestions about people wearing the mask more, or?
Well, I believe that the proclamation that was sent out through Graham County, and then with their municipalities agreeing and signing, that did push a stronger message, and that I believe that did have a significant impact on why we're decreasing in numbers. Approximately 2 weeks after that was signed, we're actually seeing a decrease.
Sir, on testing, do we have test results here that are 15 one-day turnover to find out, or what's the time to find out on it?
Well, during July, when there was a spike basically statewide, and some of our commercial tests were turning around our lab results anywhere from 7 to 10 days, which was actually unacceptable. As of right now, that they did beef up their operations at the commercial labs, and I believe the turnaround right now is anywhere between 3 to 4 days. So that has improved.
Is there anywhere here offering like antibody tests too?
Well, it's pretty much the gold standard right now is the PCR testing, which is the nasal swab. As of the antibody testing, with the rapid test kits in which we have purchased, they are not considered they're not considered a valid testing. We only use them for screening as of right now. They're not real accurate, but they are a good screening tool that many times that we will use the antibody test if someone is not symptomatic, and if they do test positive for antibodies, then we will PCR them.
And how accurate are the tests, the nasal swabs?
Right, and the nasal swabs are right around 65% accurate. But that's the best that the country has at this time, and the serum test or the antibody test is less accurate. In fact, what we're finding right now, those individuals that have had COVID-19, whether they had a mild or a moderate case, we are not picking up antibodies in them, or no longer picking up antibodies after 90 days. So the immunity for COVID is not lasting as long as we would like for it to. So thus the antibody test is again, it's not a confirmatory test because of that.
And maybe as soon as there's possibly a vaccine out there, maybe you'll come back and talk to us about that and the general feeling in the county about that.
Mm-hmm, okay, and just to, we are planning for mass vaccination clinics, possibly by the first of the year. We already have in stock 40,000 syringes, Band-Aids, and alcohol wipes. And so, as we set right now, that we have enough supplies on hand to go ahead and vaccinate everyone within Graham County with at least a first dose of the vaccine.
So if the antibodies don't give you immunity very long,
Mm-hmm.
is it anticipated that the vaccine would be that much more effective at a long-term?
Hope so. Hope so. We just don't know at this point. Although that the rapid antibody tests are not picking up antibodies after 90 days, that there are memory cells in which we have that can possibly, help us with that immunity.
And if a person tests positive for the antibodies,
Mm-hmm.
and you go ahead and do the swab,
Mm-hmm.
and they turn out positive, is that one case or is that two?
One.
Okay.
That's one case. At the tribe, the tribe, they are testing multiple times on positive cases, but if they do come back positive multiple times, it's only counted as one case.
Any other questions? It just seems like, this is so new, and you're probably getting new updates in all the time, because it seems like there's always new materials or whatever surfacing.
Right, it's very fluid, yes.
Yeah,
And criteria is changing daily.
yeah. Well, thank you. Anybody else have anything?
Thank you so
Thanks a
much,
lot.
Brian.
you.
Really
Okay.
appreciate
Okay,
it.
thank you.
Okay, and we'll move on to item number 8. It's a public hearing in compliance with Arizona Revised Statute 38.431.02 to hear public comments regarding ordinance number 020-008, fence height. Ms. Anderson, please.
Good evening, Vice Mayor and members of council. What I have before you is a text amendment to our zoning ordinance, specifically Chapter 1712 and Section 1712-090, which deals with fence heights. The current zoning ordinance states that no fence or wall shall be constructed higher than 3 feet above grade in any required front or side yard that fronts on a street, provided that fences constructed in the side yards that front on a street may be constructed to a height of 6 feet when located behind the forwardmost part of the main building. The code is silent on rear yard fences, and it's also silent on interior lot line fences. And so, in addition to that, I want to show you some photos I have. What staff runs into is people installing fences that actually exceed the 3-foot requirement. And generally, what staff has been doing is allowing fences to be 6 feet in the rear yard and then in the side yards when they're behind the very front of the building. Is that, so, go to this. So, in town, we have fences of all different heights, and that causes some confusion amongst people who are building fences because they just look across the street or down the street and they see something that is, 4 feet. Same thing for what, products that Home Depot sells. So here you have some examples of, 36, let me turn the light. Here you have some examples. I took photos of around town, anywhere from 36 to, I think, 51 inches. We have, solid block walls. We have metal fencing, combination, like the fence on the right, which is metal and a block wall. Wood fencing, again, on the bottom right is metal fencing, block wall. And then these other examples of block walls and post and rail type fencing. So fences in town are anywhere between 36 inches and up to 51 inches. They don't require a permit, and they don't require a zoning clearance, but there are guidelines in our code for fences. And so I took this to the Planning and Zoning Commission on the 18th and made some suggestions to do some modifications to our code, both housekeeping and also to increase the height to 48 inches. The Planning and Zoning Commission at their June meeting had some concerns about having a 48-inch block wall in the front yard or side yard and people backing out of driveways and not being able to see oncoming traffic or people walking on a sidewalk. And so the Planning and Zoning Commission had me go back and rework some language in the code to make some modifications to that, and I'll go over that in a minute. Also, at their second meeting, they had concern about houses that were set further back on the property, and if they could only bring a 6-foot fence up to the front of their building line, they could have 50 more feet in their front yard, and they may want to have a fence 6 feet high going closer to the street. And so they asked staff to draft some language that would include allowing a 6-foot fence to extend all the way to the 20-foot setback line. The setback line is measured from the front property line back along the side properties. So with that, so the proposed text amendment is to eliminate the existing language because it's confusing and it doesn't address everything. And so the language that staff came up with and the Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed and is recommending City Council consider is that A, no solid site obscuring fence or freestanding wall higher than 3 feet above grade. So they made a distinction between something that's site obscuring, like a solid block wall, and no metal, picket, chain link, or similar open non-site obscuring fence higher than 4 feet above grade shall be constructed in any required front or side yard. So there's two standards. For a solid block wall, it would be 3 feet, because that way you could still see oncoming traffic, or you can see somebody walking along a sidewalk. But if you could see through the fencing, then it would be allowed to be 48 inches. The second part is fences constructed in a side yard may be constructed to a maximum height of 6 feet when located behind the forwardmost part of the main building. And that's similar to how the code reads now. But they wanted, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended that for property zone residential, that fences constructed in a side yard may be constructed to a maximum of 6 feet in height, all the way up to the front yard setback line, which is 20 feet. Also, for housekeeping purposes and clarification, staff added language that no fence or wall shall be constructed higher than 6 feet along the rear property line. As I mentioned, the original code didn't even mention the rear property line. Also, staff felt it was important to quantify how you measure fences. So fence height shall be measured as the vertical distance between the finished grade at the base of the fence and the top edge of the fence material. Additionally, when there's an elevation change that exists between two properties, we don't have a lot of those, but we've had a few. There was one when I first started working here. The fence height should be measured on the side where the elevation is higher. So if you have a property that is 2 feet higher than the property adjacent to it, the property that's higher, you would measure that 6 feet from the higher property, which would mean on the other side it would be 8 feet high. So that was something else that staff thought to clarify. And then additionally, there is a section in the code that talks about clear view of intersecting streets, so those corner lots. And so I thought it was important to cross-reference that in this proposed text amendment. And actually, this provision in the code comes right after the fence height text amendment. And that provision mentions that no obstruction will obscure the view of automobile drivers, shall be placed on any corner lot, and then there's a measuring that you do where you measure 35 feet back in each direction, draw a triangle, and so fences in that area on a corner lot could not exceed 36 inches. And I'll be happy to answer any questions. It's also a public hearing if anybody in the audience has any comments.
I had a question. You know, we ran into an issue with this several years ago, and I know there have been fences that have been constructed that were higher than they should have been, and actions had to be taken. And for some reason, I thought that we had talked about requiring a permit. We would not charge for the permit, but it would be an opportunity to give people instruction on how the fence should be and could be constructed. But you're saying there's nothing in the ordinance that talks about a permit being issued?
That's correct.
I guess I imagine that.
No, I remember that meeting, that was a 10-foot wall. And the neighbors were complaining about the height of that at that time, so
But we talked about, didn't we talk about a permit to build a fence, but there would be no charge to issue the permit?
I did. I kind of recall that, yes.
We did?
I think so.
So I don't know where it went, apparently nowhere, but I thought I remembered that.
And, you know, and I would think just the idea with them getting a permit at, you know, at no cost, that'd give us, the city, a chance to tell them what they can do, so there won't be any misunderstandings.
Yeah, that was the whole purpose of it, not to charge, but to give them instruction on, I mean, I know we've had fences that have had to come down because people built them and then found out later they didn't meet the code.
We do have a zoning compliance permit requirement for like sheds, accessory structures in a yard, and it specifically talks about that in the zoning ordinance, that you need to have a plot plan showing where you're gonna be putting those structures. That's something in addition to this text amendment, if it's council's pleasure, I could put together and add that to the zoning ordinance if there's a consensus that the council would like to see people get some kind of zoning clearance permit for installing fences in their yards.
some kind of guidance, yes.
Personally, I think it would, avoid,
Yeah.
situations.
So I think we want to make
Consensus
it more
here.
difficult for people, but at the same time, if they understand going in, what's allowed, then it can save a lot of issues down the road. But, whatever everyone else thinks.
I thought that's what we talked about before too, Mr. Seal, so yeah, give them
soon.
I'd like to see them receive some guidance if we have something to tell them, so.
Yeah.
And also, you said, measuring of the fence was from the ground to the top and the material level, like the 6 foot. Now, if they go 6 foot and then they add, like, sometimes they add 3 stringers of barbed wire on top of that, does that end up being, 8 feet or 7 feet?
Yeah, Vice Mayor and Councilman Lopez, that would be counted. We don't see that very often in town, particularly in residential. We have different provisions for commercial, and we have different provisions for industrial zones where they can have higher fences and they can top them with, razor wire or some type of barbed wire. But generally, we don't see that in residential. But it would be measured from whatever is that's all considered part of the fence material, so.
Then I believe you have some direction from the council too.
And I just would like to back up on the provision that the Planning and Zoning Commission suggested, which is this very last sentence, as far as properties that are zoned residential, to allow fences to be 6 feet in height up to that front setback line, if council's okay with that or not. That was something that they threw in kind of at the last minute and asked staff to add that.
What is your minimum lot depth?
Well, it varies by zone, so it just depends. Some can be 100 feet, some could be.
There are some that are 60 though, aren't there?
60-foot width, but there are some shorter lots in town that don't have that lot depth.
Okay. So, I don't know that you've covered all the bases, and I know probably a whole lot of time went into this, but I can think of a place or two that have 1,000-foot clear span either direction, no streets coming out, but you're not letting them use the front 20 feet of their property the way they want to. It looks like that same triangle should work at a driveway, that sight distance, for somebody who has that situation. Has that been addressed?
Not a triangle from a driveway. That's only on corner lots. So I think if you did the triangle on driveway and you have 60-foot wide lots, and then you'd have to measure maybe 35 feet back. I'm not sure. Then that would mean somebody in the front yard might have a fence that's 36 feet high, and then it bumps up to 48, the further it gets from the driveway, but then you'll have an adjacent property with a driveway next door also.
But if I have a 200-foot of frontage, you're gonna still burn the same 20 feet all the way?
When you talk about the 20 feet is this provision that allows up to a 6-foot fence. So are you talking about having a 6-foot fence all the way up to that 20-foot mark, and then there may be some visibility issues from a driveway?
I'm talking about when they want to use that front 20 feet of their yard, they want it in their backyard, and this doesn't allow it, but yet they have a lot of space in order to get in and out without sight problems.
As far as
Is there any provision for like a variance or for us? I mean, this is just cut and dried, but it doesn't fit everybody. I want to know if they have any way to get around it. Can they come to somebody and present their case, or?
Well, certainly, Vice Mayor and Councilman McGoy, someone could request a variance. Generally, you have to prove a hardship with a variance. The hardship might be the width of the lot, the large size of the lot, but then they could come to City Council and request a variance to exceed the maximums for the fence heights in the front yard.
So there is a platform for that?
Yes, it would be a variance. It's a public hearing, it would go before City Council. You have to notify adjoining property owners of it and give them an opportunity to weigh in on what's being requested.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you, Susan. Then we'll move on to item number 2. It's ordinance number 020-009, the model city tax code. and this is for Alma.
Good evening, Vice Mayor and Council. So I was contacted by the League of Arizona Cities and Towns stating that some cities and towns have fallen behind adopting the changes to the Model City Tax Code approved by the Municipal Tax Code Commission. Numerous changes occurred in 2012 through 2014. Then there was a gap until 2018 through 2019 when more changes were made. The League recommended the changes be adopted in two groups since there's so many changes. I've been working really closely with Kathleen at the League of Cities and Towns and to better understand the process involved with changing the Model City Tax Code and to ensure that these changes are brought to you for adoption timelier. So tonight I'm presenting the changes adopted by the Municipal Tax Code Commission in 2012 through 2014. And just as a reminder, the goal of the two major goals of the Model City Tax Code are to provide a greater degree of uniformity throughout the cities and towns for ease of business, but also to continue to retain the right of individual cities and towns to determine the items taxed as well as the exemptions to be granted, thereby leaving the determination of the local tax base up to the individual cities and towns. Although not required, staff has posted a public notice with all the changes to the Model City Tax Code on our website for 60 days. With all the changes being made to the Model City Tax Code, I do want to assure the City Council and the community that approving the changes will not change any of our current sales tax rates or any of our current options. Our current rate will continue to be 2.5% and 1% for single items that are purchased above $5,000. So the Model City Tax Code outlines taxable items, exemptions, and reporting mechanisms, but allows cities and towns the ability to choose options and set certain rates. For instance, for one of the changes was the change to food for home consumption. All sales that were considered food for home consumption was categorized by retail. With this change, food for home consumption now has its own new section. What this does is it allows us to see a greater amount of detail. So currently, all retail is about 70% of our total city sales tax. So in order for us to see what makes up that retail category, the Model City Tax Code has made this change requiring businesses to break out retail into more detailed categories such as the food for home consumption. All the changes made to the city tax code are cleanup items and have been implemented by the state and do not impact our current rates. So included in your packet is a document with all the changes marked in red. If you have any questions.
That was a lot of reading. That's all I can say. No. Does anybody?
You have sections on, none of this, I didn't really read that into it, but I want to make sure. None of this requires us to purchase any solar power generated out there by anybody?
Vice Mayor Councilman Lopez, no, that is correct. None of this would require, all this is doing is just looking at what our Model City Tax Code is, which is basically the rules and regulations of what is taxable and how we can tax those items, and then offering other certain criteria that we can then change, such as the rate of tax.
So none of the diesel or jet fuel or anything we sell that's being sold out at the airport, that I believe we get some from that doesn't affect us?
No, those would not change.
I see where you said it doesn't affect Safford, so.
Correct.
You did go through this apparently, so. And also, you say it's been a while, we're catching up, 2002, 7 and stuff. Did our attorney look at this also?
Yes, Vice Mayor Ortega, Councilman Lopez, Bill Sims has reviewed all of these prior to me bringing this to you.
Because some of them are retroactive and back to 2002 and 7, that drives you crazy.
Yes, and the state has implemented these changes.
I saw where your study went into it, so. Okay, ma'am.
Anybody else?
Just for clarification, so no taxes changed, nothing went up, it's the same as it was before, is that
Vice Mayor Ortega, Councilman Seal, that is correct.
Thank you.
Postage, freight, everything, okay.
Thank you, Alma. Then we'll move on to item number 3. It's a liquor license application. It's an owner transfer, Series 7 beer and wine bar license. Tammy?
Vice Mayor Ortega and council members, there's no change with this liquor license as far as the series, how they serve, what they serve. All it's doing is an owner transfer. Somebody had purchased the Pizza Hut, and they're just transferring the license over to the new owner.
And there's no action required
We
on our
just
part?
need the recommendation.
This is
right?
just the public hearing right now, so the action will come later. So we'll just need to call for any public comments.
Anybody in the audience want to comment or have any concerns? And if not, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and reconvene into our regular meeting. Then we'll move on to item number 10. It's item number 10, ordinance number 020008. It's the first reading of ordinance number 020-008. Susan?
Vice Mayor and council, I just want to ask a question of our city clerk as far as procedure in this text amendment. You had mentioned about adding a provision that would require a permit, some type of permit. If the council wants staff to move forward with that, because of our advertising that we had to do for this particular ordinance and taking it to Planning and Zoning Commission, my question to our city clerk is, can we continue this item to the next meeting and staff will bring some language to add to the ordinance that addresses the permit requirement?
Yes, because that's what this is for, is any feedback from them, so then you can add any language into it.
So is that a motion that the council would make to continue the,
No, this is just a first reading, so they're just giving you direction on the ordinance.
so then I could come back with some changes?
Correct.
Okay. That's all I have, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll move on to item 10-2, ordinance number 020-009.
Vice Mayor, do we have to add
Where
that
am I
right
at?
into the
Where am
record?
I at?
No? We do? Oh, okay, sorry.
So ordinance number 020-008, an ordinance of the city of Safford, Graham County, Arizona, amending Title 17, zoning, chapter 17.12, supplementary requirements and procedures of the city of Safford Municipal Code relating to fence wall height and location.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, then we'll move on, now we'll move on to ordinance number 020-009. It's the first reading of, it's the model city tax code. Alma?
Vice Mayor, Council, are there any other questions regarding the model city tax code?
Amen.
No? Okay.
Okay, can we read it in?
Ordinance number 020-009, an ordinance of the city of Safford, Arizona, relating to the transaction privilege tax, adopting the 2012 through 2014 amendments to the tax code of the city of Safford by reference, establishing effective dates, providing for severability, and providing penalties for violations.
Thank you. Then we'll move on to item number 11. It's a liquor license. It's a request for the mayor and city council to recommend approval to the Department of Liquor licenses for the transfer of ownership. And this is an action item.
Correct.
Move to approve?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Then we'll move on to 11-2. It's the minutes, to approve the minutes from meeting February 10th, 2020, the 24th of 2020, and July 13th, 2020. Any discussion or any changes? This is an action item. Need a motion?
So moved.
Motion, a second?
Second?
Okay, we have a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Then we'll move on to 11-3, library confidentiality policy. This is an action item. Sylvia?
Yes, Vice Mayor and Council, this is a request to update our current library confidentiality policy. The current policies we have were adopted in 2008 and 2012. It has been updated to include current practices. We did remove the staff procedures in the Library Bill of Rights, and the Library Bill of Rights is actually added to the collection development policy. Are there any questions?
No questions?
It was another reading episode.
Another, yeah, another long reading.
Okay, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
and a second. We have a motion and a second to approve the library confidentiality policy. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And number 4 is unattended children and vulnerable adult policy.
Yes, Vice Mayor and Council, this is an update of a current policy, the unattended children policy. We've actually added verbiage to include vulnerable adults, and we've again removed staff procedures. Are there any further questions?
This is an action item. Any questions?
No, sir.
Nope.
Then we need a motion.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a
Second.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The next is the collection development policy.
Yes, Vice Mayor and Council, this is another update of our current collection development policy. Our most recent policies were adopted in 2007 and 2013. We have updated to include our current practices. We've also updated the reconsideration of materials form. And then we also included new verbiage to include the removal of materials as well as how we evaluate databases and licensed software. Are there any questions?
Any questions?
I want to ask a question, and I don't know that it's pertinent, but what is this part of us moving from, what was it, Overdrive to Cloud Library, or, I don't know that I've said that right, with the virtual checkout or whatever. What spawned that, and is that part of this?
There's a couple of, Councilmember McGuire, there's a few reasons why. The Cloud Library we decided to move toward because Overdrive was limiting our amount of selection. And with the Cloud Library, what we've done is we're part of a consortium with other libraries in the state. So it allows us to get access to approximately 50 to 60,000 items, whereas with Overdrive, we were limited to about 4,000 to 6,000, depending on what member libraries. And the collection development policy was just in need of an update overall. And while we were updating a lot of our other procedures, we noticed that a lot of our policies were severely out of date, and we no longer practiced. But one did not influence the other. It just was a kind of a coincidental that we updated this right after we went to cloud.
I'm getting a lot of complaints about that shift. They're saying the exact opposite of what you are. They said now there's nothing available and there used to be, and I just wondered if it was our policies were changing what they could access or something.
If they do have questions, they're always welcome to come talk to us. With Overdrive, there were certain titles available. Cloud Library, there is certain limits. So if there's a hold on an item and another library owns that title, our patrons won't see that. So that could be what they're running into. But if they do have recommendations on what we can purchase, we're always looking to purchase. That is a growing collection. It just started in March. So that is something definitely we're going to continue to grow with. But if they do have questions, they're more than welcome to contact us and we'll walk them through.
Sorry to sidetrack.
Oh, no, you're fine.
And was there any more discussion on this? This was an action item.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, then we'll move on to item 12. It's contract agreements. This one is from John. It's regarding the police station.
Good evening, Vice Mayor, members of council. The item before you tonight is for the award of a construction contract to Danson Construction Company out of Phoenix for the police building. We had 11 bids. It also did a pre-bid on it. If you recall, the building is just over 6,000 square feet, 6,400 square feet. Slab, masonry walls, wood structure. They did advertise according to all the proper guidelines for ARS, and we got a pretty good response, quite a few bidders, and we had 9 people attend the pre-bid, so there was a lot of interest in the facility. And in fact, I just want to make everybody aware, Dan Fontana of Danson Construction is here in the back, and so as we go through this, if there are questions or any kind of detailed stuff that you need to ask, Dan let me know that he would be available to answer some of those questions. The base bid came in at $2.1 million, and staff did add in 3 alternates for parking spaces and for basically a sally port with rolling gates, and also a backup generator that brought the total up to $2.3 million. And again, the items in question were things that we discussed when we were going through the building, and they are kind of inherent parts of the building. So what we're doing is we're recommending it in its entirety with the alternates. Again, it's not necessarily the case that you have to accept them all, but our recommendation is that you do, because basically rolling them into the main construction bid actually will save us money in the long run. If we have to go out for the alternates separately, they'll end up costing us more money individually. And there's nothing here that's extraordinary or atypical for a police facility. So at this point, we also had other expenses. We did build a contingency in of over $200,000. There's some other construction management and items that generally go along with a contract of this size, bringing the project total at this point to $2.6 million. Now, obviously, we've got $2.285 left in the current budget year because monies were expended in prior years. Remember, the bond was 2.5, so we spent some of those bond monies in 2020 and 2019 in preparation, architectural work and demolition. So we're starting at the 2.285, which is what remains. And so with all the expenditures, the bids, the alternates, and the other expenditures, you're at 2.6, which means that it would be 3.57 or $357,000 you would need to complete that $2.6 million construction cost this year. So that money would come out of reserves in order to make up that balance. So I want to be clear about that. And again, the alternates are probably about another 220,000. So even without those, we would be slightly over. But again, remember that the other expenses has a $200,000 contingency contained in it already. So we may not need to spend that money, but that's also built in. And again, I recommend that we go forward. I think that the process so far has been fairly frugal. I think we've kept the size of the building down. We've kept costs down. There's always going to be some creep in a project like this. I don't think we saw a lot of that. So I think the facility and the alternates that are being put forward are a pretty solid offering. So again, at that point, I would turn it over to you and, for your approval.
Anybody have any questions?
I do, and I don't want to sound opposed to what's happened here, but how did these alternates get thrown in? Did we get a bid and then find out we had money left, so we figured a way to spend it? Or were they already part of the original bid package? I kind of feel like sometimes we as a council don't really know what you guys are doing, because we've never seen a set of plans for this building, the parking lot, anything. And then it comes to us with a couple of things we weren't expecting. Is there a way we could get better information up front?
Vice Mayor, Councilman McGoy, probably if you're not getting the information you need, then we need to look at doing a
Well,
better
it
job.
happens with all of our projects that go to bid. We've never seen the plans for the last 10 things that have been bid out.
Okay,
And
well,
I think some of the things that pop up in there surprise us, because I know, at least my memory says that the Sally Port and the interior furniture, which isn't in there, but were kind of expressly said, no, let's wait on that, and then it turns up back in there, and I just, maybe I remember it wrong, but
no, I think you remember correctly. I
just-
think that the base bid, I don't think we put a bid together without the alternates, I believe, and I could be wrong, but I think we put it in there with the alternates, and I think the sense was that at some point, we were gonna need these alternates to finish the building. Now, again, something like the Sally Point and the parking may not be necessary right away, but I think given the cost of doing it in the future, you're only gonna spend more money. So if there's a desire at some point to have these items be a part of the project, I think that staff felt that it was better to put them in there. And again, it's a recommendation. So if you feel that we're not ready to go forward at this point with those alternates, we can still go forward with the base bid, and then we can put the alternates in at a later time. But I think the reason they got put in there is they felt that they were really part of, getting the basic area functioning. And in the long run, you end up saving money, because as being part of the main bid, you tend to get a little bit better price. So like the Sally Port may go up considerably if you were to bid it on its own. Considerably, I mean 30–40%, it's hard to say, but it would be more money. So again, maybe we need to do a little better job in conveying the way the development of the project moved along. But you can approve it without the alternates if you want, and just approve the base bid.
Well, just so I'm clear, I'm not opposed to those things, and I think we probably need them. But I would have liked to have heard what the difference in throwing them in and financing them now, or building them for cash later, what the difference would have been, or a few, it just seems it seems like we would have heard more about it before today.
And I think that's
when we're
fair.
supposed to
I think
make a
that's
decision.
fair. Yeah, I agree. And again, as you said, the furniture's not in here. So we still gotta deal with the issue of furniture, which hopefully as the building goes forward and we're looking at final completion, we may be able to get by, and the furniture would end up being something that we would do in next year's budget. And so that is not in here. But
Well, and I remember hearing something about, we can get a surplus generator for 10% of the money, when we said no to it. Said, we'll get a surplus generator, we'll have that for little or nothing, but it's back in there at full price.
Well, I think we got a surplus generator, and I think the one that we got, for technical reasons, is not compatible with the building and the design and what's needed for the building. So I think they did go out and get the generator, only to find out that technically it's not compatible with the design.
All stuff I think we should have been apprised of. Now shut up now.
No, that's, and again, that's fair.
Keep going, Steve. Keep going. You got more, let's hear it, I wanna hear it.
I just had one comment. I think if we're gonna need a Sally Port at some point in the future, I don't believe we have one now, is that right, Chief Moore? I think if we feel like we're gonna need one in the future, that it's definitely gonna be to our advantage to do it now, from a price standpoint, because, like you said, it's a standalone thing, and you've gotta get somebody to rebid that and to come out and do it. I think, I don't really have a problem if that's something we're gonna need at some point. And, I don't know, Chief Orr, could you address that? Don't wanna take too much time, but
He's gonna make his pitch for it,
you have 3 minutes.
yeah.
That long, I hope. Vice Mayor Ortega, Councilman Seal. If you don't mind, I'd like to answer the question on the generator. We did get a military generator. I'm not an electrician, but I know our electric department looked at it. It runs like a complete field hospital and cannot be wired into our city existing system. It's not, because the military does their system different than our electrical, so that's what happened with the generator situation there. As far as the Sally Port goes, we call it a Sally Port It's for the safety of the officers, it's for the safety of the citizens. When we arrest people and take them in, there's less chance of having to chase someone, injuring someone, those kind of situations. And really, we call it a side port, what we're looking more for is more of an evidence area for seized vehicles, large enough items that currently we're putting out at the Mesa Yard where the inmates are working around them, all those kind of things, and we're running into issues with court and other things on security and what are we holding, what are we not holding, what do we have control of, what can we watch, what can't we watch. And so that's a lot of what we're calling it a sally port because it will be used that way, but it will be used also for storing larger pieces of evidence during cases and those kind of things to keep the court process more of a secure situation.
Thank you.
Any other discussions?
No, I kind of think the Sally Port's important also. But I agree with you, Steve. It's a set of plans would be nice, especially in your hands, because you can read them a lot better than I can. So I'd like to make sure some of them get in your hands at times.
Chief, what's the average time that you'll be holding evidence in the Sally Port?
So what we would do is we would, Vice Mayor Ortega, Councilman Anazola, this would be a short-term control. We seize the vehicle, say for drug case, those kind of things. We would put it in there. We process it. If we need to fingerprint cards from stolen, recovered vehicles, we process them, those kind of things. We can show that the evidence is controlled and maintained. And then once it's all processed and done, then we would still move it out to the Mesa Yard.
What if it's a murder case?
We have to keep those cars for 99 years to life, so we would move them out to the Mesa Yard once court is done. But those kind of things we would want to keep secured as long as the court process was going on. But the smaller cases, once they're processed and those kind of things, we can then move them out. If we have to keep them all in that Sally Port, we're basically building a yard. We're going to put cars in that are going to rot there. So we don't want to get in that process. But
And you're still gonna do the deal with the imports, with the impounds, correct, or no?
The problem with impounds is we run into, if it's short-term, yes, we can. Long-term, we can't do impounds. The laws change some on that, on what we can and can't do with vehicles.
Anybody else?
And you're saying possibly, or you just pull that out, that the cost could increase by 30%. I didn't know if that's you introduced somebody earlier. I didn't know if they had an answer to that cost or not. Could it go up that much, 30%?
Vice Mayor, Councilman Lopez, based on my discussions with staff, yes. Because sometimes what happens when you have the base bid and you have alternates, there is kind of a cost sharing, for lack of a better term, so things get absorbed into the overall cost of the building, that if you go for the bid on its own, that item obviously is a standalone item. So sometimes there's more, some of the cost may be in the base bid to kind of keep the alternates down, to encourage, basically that they go forward in some sense. So my understanding is, in my conversation, that the cost could rise in that range, 30 to 40% over what is currently in as an alternate.
And we're getting a generator because them little rats, the county didn't want to share the one with us anymore, huh?
I plead the fifth on that one.
Okay. The one that still exists out there and can handle all the load.
You're killing them. Cut it
Yeah,
out.
okay.
Well, good. I think I agree with everything that I've heard, and especially, thank you, Councilman Seal, and then everything that I've heard, and we have to be kept up more on what's actually happening. And this idea about, these couple things coming, saving money because, we really didn't hear, that's important. Anything we can save, but we just have to be kept abreast of what's happening a little better. Okay, this is an action item to award the bid to Danson Construction Company. We need a motion.
But I'm not sure if you've changed the motion at all, or if you've changed what we have in front of us at all, or we're still going forward with
what they want.
with what they want, yeah.
I move to approve as laid out here.
Second.
Okay. Everybody understand the motion then?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Then we'll go to 12.2. That's a wastewater treatment plant, a PLC upgrade award. Morgan, please.
Vice Mayor and Council, this is a request for council to approve and award the wastewater treatment plant project to the lowest bidder, which is Ripple Industries, for the amount of $95,788. This PLC upgrade will replace 3 obsolete and unsupported PLCs and consolidate them into 2 current PLCs. This will also include the addition of instrumentation and refining the plant and oxidation ditch logic to increase our ability to monitor and control the process of the treatment plant. Are there any other questions?
How long before this will be obsolete?
So the current PLC that we have right now, the Quantum PLC, was introduced in 1994, so it was 26 years old. Our plant is about 18 years old, so it is time to upgrade since it is obsolete. The PLC is the brain of the plant. It tells the machines when to kick on, when to kick off, based on variables and parameters.
So you think this one's gonna give us as much life as the last one did?
So this one was introduced in about 2018, a couple of years ago.
Is there gonna be any more added cost somewhere, software, protection of this installation?
Vice Mayor, Councilman Lopez, we already obtained the current software that we need to upgrade to these PLCs. We're also upgrading the water side at the same time with the same software, so we're using it for both sides, water and wastewater. There will be another, this is phase 2 of 3. The third phase will be the upgrade of the IO cards. The IO cards are responsible for turning them on physically, but with these PLCs, we can replace them as we want instead of right now. It'll give us the flexibility to do that at a later date, next year, 3 years from now, whenever we need to.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve and a second. All in favor?
Make sure Arnold
Aye.
got his say.
Hmm?
He didn't ask for there to be any more comments. Approved.
Yeah.
Aye.
All in favor? Item passed.
Thank you.
Okay, then we'll move on to 12-3. Town of Thatcher amended and restated water agreement. John?
Good evening, Vice Mayor, members of council. The item before you here is essentially a resolution that was passed by the town of Thatcher. It is, as stated, an amendment to the existing agreement. If you recall, on May 26th, we passed an agreement with the co-op to do a service exchange. Because of pre-existing agreements with the town of Thatcher, the area we call Central, essentially, we needed to get their approval to pass the responsibility for the provision of water services to that area from us to the co-op. And so essentially, the resolution in front of you is Thatcher's approval of that transfer of responsibility from the city of Safford to the co-op, which would change the service area in the earlier agreement, the 2010 agreement, by Central. And so essentially, this document allows us to complete that transfer under that agreement. And at this point, we would, with your approval of their approval, we would be waiting at that point for ACC to approve the co-op in terms of the exchange. And this would kind of put it to bed as far as both the city of Safford and Thatcher and the co-op are concerned.
Just had a question, John. So, if the ACC doesn't approve it, then this really has no
Correct.
bearing.
That's correct.
And I had a question I had asked John about it today or this week or sometime, because I was concerned about it doing anything to where the co-op could just annex anything else from us without our approval and stuff. And he assured me that that wasn't the case, so that's a safeguard I had when we went further ahead with this.
I just want to say I appreciate you putting a cartoon in there that makes it where I can keep up. The big words I can't read, but that map makes sense to me.
Well, you know, I struggled with that because, again, I didn't want to alter the document as adopted by Thatcher, but as I read it, I was hoping I could make it a little more clear, but I was very hesitant to make any changes because I didn't want to change their existing resolution, but.
And I appreciate Thatcher going forward with it.
Any-
You good?
Move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve.
Second.
Second, we have a motion and to approve the restated water agreement with Thatcher. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Then we'll move on to item 13, announcement of current events.
I have a question, I guess. I know it's not here quite yet, but with the League of Cities and Towns having changed the format completely of their meeting, is there anything that we need to do to get registered or?
If there's any classes that you guys want to get registered for, just let me know and I can get you signed up for that.
Okay.
Just let me know whichever ones you want to sign up for.
I think the resolution committee, we would still need to have a representative for that, but I don't know if that's something we need to sign up for.
Okay. I'll look into it and find out for you.
And this is also a time where we suggest agenda items, which I've made requests for the work session coming up, some agenda items that I wanted to talk about, like the landfill. You know, some of the items that I found out during this campaign season that I think we need to revisit, like the landfill. This was one of the items that is completed now. The retirement costs that we have for the PRS, like the police, for example, how it's encroaching on us real big, I didn't want presentations from staff necessarily or anything like that on any of them. I just wanted to talk to the rest of you, touch base at that time so we could make sure we're on the same page going forward when we have those discussions. Some of them are gonna be coming up on our budget season when we address it, and I would like to get ahead of it if we possibly could. Some of the others weren't original ideas that we've already been doing that. They're in the middle of getting done, like this one, and I just wanted to talk to the rest of you at that time. I don't plan on taking all day from you.
And, you know, and I'd kind of to add to that, I'd kind of like to hear what's going to be happening now with the recycling, you know, gone. How's that going to affect the life of our landfill?
That we could probably address then.
Yeah,
I
at
don't
the same
know. It's
time,
just-
yeah.
Yeah, and in fact, I would like, right before our work session, to get it sent out to you what topics I had in mind so that you could have them in your minds and ready to discuss. So you can help me know where we stand.
And I know I've already made a note, I won't be at that work session. I have a Siegel meeting scheduled for the same day. Anybody else have anything?
I'd like to suggest that the Lachey's little presentation here, I know that you were directed to deal with her, but I think really that should probably go to the zoning commission because it's part of the ordinance, isn't it? Probably should go to them and let them bat it around a little bit before it comes back to us. But I would like to hear what comes of it.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I didn't know if she just all of a sudden showed up and Susan wasn't aware of it or anything, but I think that she needs to talk to you guys to find out what could be done then, you know? To be fair to the lady, of course.
If I may, Mayor and Vice Mayor and Council, I did have conversations with her and actually recommended that she come here and address City Council during that open comment period. So we have been conversing.
Okay.
But I certainly could take that item to the Planning and Zoning Commission if that's a desire of the council to discuss further. I'd be happy to do
It
that.
just doesn't seem right for us to start changing their document without their input.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
would be a text amendment to our code of ordinances. It's not in the zoning code, it's in another part of the code that deals with animals, but that's something that we could certainly have the Planning and Zoning Commission weigh in on.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody have anything else? Okay, then we'll move on to the report on operational items. This one is Safford Gas System update. Raymond?
Good evening, Vice Mayor Ortega, City Council. I'm going to present on our gas system upgrade. Okay, on March 2nd, 2020, the Arizona Corporation Commission conducted an audit of our gas system. They audited 2017, 2018, 2019 gas operations and documents. They had relatively small findings. Some of them were, say, missing procedures. We were missing brazing test leads. We're missing a procedure for cathodic protection, lead locating and marking. We were missing a procedure on testing isolated fittings. We had 3 language issues, missing miter joints not allowed, hot taps must be made by qualified individuals, and 50% of the gas employees have to be drug tested annually. In our manual, we were missing our capacity charts for our relief valve assemblies, and out in the field, we were missing 3 tags on some meter sets for their excess flow valves. These issues were repaired within a week of receiving that report. The final finding has been issued to most operators statewide, including a lot of our neighboring gas systems. What it consists of is insufficient documentation on to establish maximum allowable operating pressure. We don't have any pressure test records on our high pressure mains, and we have no system pressure records from 1965 to 1970. After looking at all of our options, we decided to perform a pressure upgrade of our gas system. What it is, it consists of increasing our gas system pressure in small increments and leak surveying after each increase. What will happen is our distribution system will be increased from our current maximum pressure of 24 PSI to 30 PSI in 2 steps. To perform this, I created a detailed step-by-step procedures that were reviewed and approved by the Arizona Corporation Commission. The system will be surveyed after each increase of pressure by a third party. This will allow us to repair all leaks found, and it'll speed it up from a 12-month process to a 3-month process. A small isolated section will be tested first to see how our customers' regulators react to the pressure increase. Our high pressure mains have already been upgraded. This happened in mid-July. We had no issues at all with it. After completion, our distribution system will have a established maximum allowable pressure, operating pressure of 30 PSI, but we'll only run it at the current 22, 23 PSI. Our high pressure lines will have a maximum allowable operating pressure of 100 PSIs, and they'll only be ran at 90 PSI like they are now. This will last the life of the system. Any questions?
Thank you.
I'm not sure if some of that wasn't negative.
On
Which wouldn't be up to me, that'd be up to the manager. However, you are aware we're taking over more area gas-wise soon?
Yes, sir.
Well, as soon as we get things going, so we are taking over more area, that's it, sir.
Yeah.
clarify. You know, this was an interesting experience, and it seems to be an ongoing theme right now with the Model City Tax Code and now with the gas. Apparently, I don't know, something happened somewhere, or someone discovered some statute somewhere, because this uprate exercise that we're going through, I mean, we had sent them materials, we had some historical documents that documented certain things that they found to be insufficient, but they're going back to 1965 to 1970, you know, pre-computer, to try to figure out whether or not certain areas of our system met the pressurization testing that was required. And of course, trying to dig those out was somewhat difficult to find it. So we had conversations with ACC, and most of the findings were fairly mundane, and they were rectified relatively quickly. This one is a little bit more involved, and again, we're not alone. Apparently, there are a lot of communities going through the same thing, and I think some of them have even decided to take it to court legally, because the requirements for them to comply with this would be fairly onerous. So again, it's interesting in that the ACC, who obviously we have to deal with on a regular basis, shows up at some point in 2020 and says, you don't have records from 1965 to 1970, and I'm kind of, where have you been all my life? You know, we're just figuring this out now. So again, I think our response has been, we will benefit as a city going in and retesting and repressurizing the system as a whole, and we'll be in a very good position to go forward at that point with modern documentation and ensuring that the pressure in the system is adequate and safe. And we've also already started with a couple of high pressure lines, which we've done already with a much shorter distance. So I just want to emphasize that this is kind of coming out of left field a little bit, and in the interest of our own safety and having a system that we're comfortable with and that has been documented, we're moving forward to fix it. But it kind of, I think there is, you know, kind of like with the Model City Tax Code, someone found something somewhere, and then all of a sudden we've got all these changes from 1965. So I think overall the system assessment has been very, very positive. And hopefully once we get through this, we'll have a system that's been tested throughout the entirety of the city that will allow us to go forward and have some confidence if we need to expand. So I just wanted to clarify that. We're not alone in this boat. Apparently someone found something or something happened, so.
Okay. Well done.
I'd like to also clarify, all of these findings were documentation-wise, not operations. Everything's being operated and being performed the way they would, the way it's supposed to. Just our documentation failed to show adequately that we are doing it and what we are doing. We are actually performing, let's say, our drug tests, 50% of our personnel. We are putting Nexus flow valve tags on there. We're doing everything that we're supposed to. It's just our documentation is just missing or not in there.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Okay. Okay, then I'd like to, with no further business, I'd just like to thank staff for coming and all the visitors that are coming, even Thatcher. So with that, we need a motion.
I make the motion, we adjourn.
Okay, we have a motion, second.
Second?
Second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thanks again, everybody.